This past March, when we were having to stay home and watch a lot of TV, I went down the rabbit hole that I'd never been down before of YouTube, and ended up watching a channel by two professional triathletes, Eric Lagerstrom and Paula Findlay, who's Canadian. And it was an inside look into their lives as pro triathletes. And it was really transparent, and I really felt connected to these guys, loving the sport as much as I do. And I pretty much watched all the episodes that were going on. And my wife started to watch it too. And my wife doesn't really like triathlon. She doesn't really feel connected to triathlon, but she really felt connected to Eric and Paula. And so she watched all the episodes too. And I noticed it at the end of the videos that it was by Transition 4, and they had a company, not even a company at this time, it was just called That Triathlon Life. So you had That Triathlon Life, which was the show by Eric and Paula, and Transition 4 was a media production company that was Eric's company. And it's funny how things develop and how things happen, that I had started to watch this show and felt really connected to both of them. And I really love what they were doing. And this discovery of just how amazing YouTube really is to just discover people. And a friend of mine who's a really good athlete, she sent me a text message and said, Eric Lagerstrom just posted on Instagram that he's looking to redo his brand. And went on his Instagram page and he just posted, yeah, I'm looking to redo our brand. Any advice or direction, or any people that know this, can you reach out to me? So I sent him a DM on Instagram and said, you know, I've worked with a lot of brands. I know cycling, I know triathlon really well. Why don't you give me a call, man? And so right away he called me, and we just started to talk about how great I thought the channel was. And he knew the work that I had done with Cervelo, and he knew the work that I had done with Open. So he looked at that and thought, this is really who I am as well. And the first project that he wanted to do was he wanted to give an identity and a foundation to his production company, Transition 4. And Transition 4 works with other companies in the space as a media outlet to generate content. And that's what Eric really specializes in. But the existing logo that he had, it wasn't really something that he could use across all touch points. And Eric hadn't been through this process before. He's still a young guy, but he kind of knew what he wanted, and he sort of was able to articulate what he wanted and how he wanted it. And I said to him, well, just give me a description of what the company stands for. And he sent that to me, and I'm going to show you that on the screen. And then I said, I want you to think about the 10 words that really talk about who you are and what this company stands for. And when you look at this screen and you take a look at these 10 words: progressive, moving, emotional, connection, passion, depth, creative, style, simple, speed. And if you watched his videos and you saw how meticulous he was and how he prepared his bikes, how he built his van, that's a big part of the show, that you could see all these things, that he was passionate about what he was doing, and he was a creative guy. But Transition 4 was about speed and simplicity and really emotional connection, progressive, and I think the word moving was something that I heard him talk about a lot. And when you look at the mark that's on the screen here that we developed, and we developed 3 different marks for him, but I knew the mark that I thought that he would be really connected to. And I wanted to take this mark where he could put it on his channel, but if he also wanted to put it on any of the materials that he was using to hand out to clients, folders, business cards, if he wanted to put it on his hat, if he wanted to put it on cycling jerseys, that now we were building this system. And these 4 chevrons that you see that really, I think, symbolizes all those words that we talked about earlier, about connected, about progressive, speed, moving. And when we sent this to him, he just said, I can't believe just how clean and simple and timeless this logo really is. And that when you look at the font and typography that we use at the bottom and how we were able to separate transition, and 4, that you've got a system here now that you can use across all touch points. And on the next screen, you see what the mark looked like without the circle, and then what the mark looked like with just the 4 speed chevrons, and then what transition 4 just looks like as a mark. And then with the typography and colors that we gave him here in this very small one-page brand guide, all of a sudden Eric now has a brand. And when you watch his show and you look at some of the other elements that we're going to put on the screen here of what we used with all these touch points, you see the birth of a mark, how it's done, and what that's going to look like across all touch points with simplicity. And the conversation that developed with Eric, when you look at this next slide with transition 4 that's used across this photograph, that really symbolizes the life that Eric and Paul live, with this being on the road, traveling as triathletes, and a big part of their life is this fan. And the show, That Triathlon Life, that has got a lot of followers on YouTube, the show that I really felt connected to, I said to Eric, what's your plan with this brand? Well, it's a channel, and I think he was really trying to figure out what this brand could stand for. And was he even seeing it yet as a brand, or was it just a show? And what I explained to Eric, and what I wanted him to understand, that I've been in the apparel industry a long time. I've been in the brand space a long time, but I saw the foundation of what they were doing with this transparent show that was so emotionally connected to people, that I said, I think you have a real opportunity here to build something special in the space. And in the triathlon space, most of the brands are technical. There's not really a lifestyle element. And the only lifestyle element that really exists is when you go to a race and you buy certain brands and you're wearing what that race t-shirt looks like. But there wasn't a brand that was the sum of all parts, that was all encompassing what the life of triathlon looked like. That Triathlon Life. And that, to me, was a brand that they were sitting on that I thought was incredibly relevant to the space, and it was incredibly relevant to where triathlon and multisport and athletics was going. And I said, I think you should really take a look at what this could look like as starting to build a brand, and what that could look like for merchandise so that people feel more connected to what you're doing, and where this could end up down the road of what That Triathlon Life could really stand for. And what it stood for was a life of athletics that were built around multisport. And when we were building this mark in the triathlon space, it's all very cliche logos. A guy swimming, a guy biking, a guy running with a big triathlon logo. And that's really what you see in all the marks. And we wanted to develop a mark that was, again, systematic and built around simplicity, that lent itself to no color. And then we also wanted to build it where it had colors that were going to be distinctive. And Paula really has an attachment to this sort of surf fender green color that you see on the screen. And we wanted to incorporate orange sun into this, and have a mark that said everything about triathlon, that it wasn't very cliche at all. And when we sent it over to Paula and over to Eric, the reaction was the same as it was on the Transition 4. They just understood it right away because it said everything without having to say a lot. And when you look at this next slide, then we're getting into systematic stuff here. To understand how marks are built, we're just showing the mark with a solid color, one color, and then That Triathlon Life in the font that we ended up developing for these guys that could now be used side by side. So when you look at the next slide, where you've got That Triathlon Life just standing on its own, and you're going to see this in use in a second, and how this all starts to work. And then putting That Triathlon Life in a box, and the reason we put that in a box was if they wanted to do a sticker, they wanted to do a patch on a hat, that now we were starting to think about other areas. Coffee mugs, water bottles, and we wanted to encase that logo. So why did we use TTL? And that Triathlon Life that everybody relates to, we wanted to now start to think about a mark that could be talked about as TTL. And that using TTL on different elements was something that we thought was really important that they embrace if they were using small tabs on clothes, if they were doing a sticker to go on a computer, but now people were starting to refer to TTL. And so Eric understood that. And what's been amazing about what they've used with just the words TTL, the word TTL, the expression TTL, now when you follow them on YouTube and you're seeing the interaction, now people are talking, they're using TTL instead of that Triathlon Life, and it's got its own independent systematic mark. We're going to show you now how they were able to use these with their photography. And these are all shots that Eric sent to me that he took. He's a phenomenal filmmaker and a phenomenal photographer. And it was a great project to work with because he already had photography that we could use. And that when we dropped that Triathlon Life mark in green on the navy background, and you see what it looks like with the green in the background where the van is, then you start to see how this makes sense. And this next shot of Eric in his van with just TTL in the corner, then you're starting to see how branding is really working. And then using that Triathlon Life with this outline on this shot of Paula, it all starts to add up. And even this black and white shot of Paula just working out on her bike, doing a trainer workout with her SRAM Zoot outfit on with her headphones, just a really authentic shot. And when we put that mark in the corner, again, it says everything without having to say a lot. And you'll really see that with these next few shots here. And everything starts to really add up and make sense about systematic, simplistic marks. And when you look at what we developed here for what this merchandise for them to look like, and this is how they're really connected with their people. So these t-shirts that you see here that show the different marks that they just put on their website over the last month. And then we developed what these sweatshirts could look like with hoodies, with that Triathlon Life, the mark version, and TTL, what a headwear program could look like using the color logo, using just the single color mark, and then TTL, and then what that could look like on a cycling kit as well. And here's what's amazing about this project. So we started talking about this in March and April, developed the marks for them in really sort of April, May, and June. And then Eric started to think about what this could look like. He has now rebranded his channel. He talked about rebranding his channel right on the show, and people really embraced what he was doing. I felt so proud to be a part of that. Then he launched the apparel, and the first batch of apparel that he put up online, very similar to all the designs that you see here, where Eric went out and sourced all the products that he wanted. He wanted domestically produced goods, that he wasn't just taking anything and sticking his mark on it. He wanted to make sure that those companies were doing it the right way. He put it online. He announced on his channel it was going to go live at the end of the show, and within an hour, they had sold out of every single piece that was put online. Incredible launch. All about consistency, all the things that you've heard me talk about. Everything added up for those guys. And when I talked to him later in the day, he said, I can't believe how fast we sold out of this. Well, I can, because what you're selling isn't just selling t-shirts, that people are really connected to who you guys are. And they were able to go back online the next day and just take a pre-order on doing another batch of product, which also sold through very quickly. And then just over the last weekend, they launched their next batch of it, and the results were exactly the same. They let everyone know what they were doing, using all these fundamentals of branding, connecting who they were, the simplistic approach to their mark, the simplistic approach to their business. And then at the end of the show, they put it online and did a live Q&A with all of their fans. And watching this online with all the comments that were coming through, that for me, because we developed a mark for them, and it was a great project to do because I really understood what they were about, and seeing how passionate people were about what they were doing, but how passionate they were about this mark. And what happened at the end of that show, within another hour, they had sold through everything again. And this is literally the birth of a brand. You're watching in front of you what the birth of a brand looked like But this started in March and April. It's now September that we're filming this, and within 6 months that Paula and Eric have a world-class brand. And that was some of the feedback that you were seeing in the comments on the YouTube channel. This is world-class branding. And it was world-class branding because it really was all the principles that we've been talking about on here, and where simplicity in your mark really is effective, and knowing how to explain that through what everything stands for. So I think we put this in the simplicity section because it's really about what that mark identity looked like. But the fundamentals of this launch, of why this brand has worked so quickly: clarity, emotional connection, simplicity, photography, and filmmaking was a huge part in this, huge part. But Eric and Paula really understood that consistency here and having the ability to evolve, and that's going to be the last module that we're going to talk about today, that those 5 fundamentals of brand unification, here it is right in front of you. This is what it looks like when this whole process works. So for me, for someone that's been in apparel and branding a long time, and to be able to work with Eric and Paula on a project like this was really something that was really special to me because they're such good people. But the results are in the work that they've done here, and they really do have a phenomenal brand that you see on the screen here.